Sweet.
Sweet. No
Are
response
Yesh
from
and
Yesh.
myself at the same
No
levels?
response from Yesh, indeed.
Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about the movie Suzume. My name's Chris. Welcome everyone. This is a podcast about Japan, anime, and Japanese visual culture, and anything else relating to Japan. With me today is Dylan and Yesh. Welcome guys. How you doing?
Hello,
Hi.
hello. Going well.
Pretty sick, to be perfectly honest. So our audience must just forgive the occasional sniff, I think. But getting better. Can't complain. And you guys? No.
Like I said, for me at least, things are pretty average. I like to maintain a very average life, and it's going average. So I'm winning.
I mean,
I am getting mostly better from just having been sick.
right, yeah.
Another
Me and
cold.
Dylan seem to have the same thing. We didn't get it from one another though, so that just must be widespread.
Oh, a win maybe? I don't know what.
Yeah, there was an
classifies as a
evil
win
wind
anymore.
blowing through
I
the
don't
land.
know what classifies as a win.
I'll take it as a win.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we all saw this movie. Unfortunately, Dylan was sick, so he didn't see it with us. Me and Yesh went to see it in movie theaters. And
I did see it after,
yeah, you went and saw it as well. Also in theaters.
and I
yeah.
was also the only one in a cinema with Abby.
So
Oh.
yeah, there were four
Literally the only
people
one.
with in the theater that me and Yesh were in, and so there were two in yours. Dill, yeah,
Yeah,
just you and
two-
Abby?
like literally, we had an IMAX theater with just the two of us in.
Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go
We
to?
went to Cradlestone, which is
Oh, okay, that's middle of nowhere.
that side of the
Yeah.
world.
Mm.
Oh, but you had like a whole IMAX theater, which is just, gosh, they must be losing money on this. Yeah.
Look, there were some theater faults. There was they had like at one stage they had some weird projection color failure, so that there was quite a lot of like red light strobing going on that wasn't actually part of the movie.
Very clearly, someone had punched the screen in our theater.
Hmm.
I really,
Yeah.
The screen was deformed.
oh god, it's going well, guys.
But I mean, it was otherwise. I mean, it's pleasant to have an entire cinema to yourself. No one coughing
Exactly.
behind you and so on.
And
so forth.
especially in a movie where silence is part of the experience. Like
Yes.
the scenic moments definitely require a low noise floor. And
Yeah.
having a theater full of people eating popcorn, chatting to each other through the slow bits would have been a real negative experience. But we got that full theater experience without the crowd, which is just spectacular in a way.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna go through a few things about the director. So his name is Makoto Shinkai, and he's done a number of things that I think a lot of people will recognize.
Mm.
There is She and Her Cat, Kanojo to Kanojo no Neko, which I'm not, I can't remember if I actually watched or not, but it is one of kind of like a famous movie.
It is relatively
It is,
popular.
yeah.
Voices of a Distant Star, Hoshinokoe, is a very good short. I'm not sure it's a movie per se, right? It's like 40 minutes.
Like an OVA.
Yeah.
It's like a longer episode, basically.
Very depressing, but a lovely concept for a movie.
Garden of Words.
Garden of Words, 5 centimeters per second. Is that the one you were thinking about, Yesh?
Yes, it was that one.
we,
Then there's also
we had
Your
some
Name.
confusion about the exact number.
Measurement,
Yeah.
indeed. But he also did Your Name, Kimi no Nawa,
Yeah.
which is more recently a bit of a hit. And then Tenki no Ko or Weathering with You.
No, so Your Name, Weathering with You, and Suzume, so Tenkinoko, yeah. Are the three recent ones?
That he suggested is a bit more of like a trilogy of his movies as well. They're kind of linked to each other.
It sort of seems, especially Your Name and Weathering with You, definitely have this like crossover kind of vibe going. Characters appear in both of them, that sort of thing. But yeah, Suzume, I don't know. I couldn't actually spot anyone from the other movies.
I couldn't see any Easter egg references either.
So the guy with the car, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you know who I'm talking about, Dylan. He is the same voice actor that was the lead in Tenkinoko.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, that is a connection, I guess.
I do want to say something just quickly as well.
Yeah?
While in the car, the thing that we were laughing at the most is he was playing a bunch of music.
Yes, yeah.
There was some reasoning behind why that was a funny situation, but we'll leave that alone for now. But the music, 3 of the tracks were from Ghibli movies.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Really?
Yeah.
I was just reading up on references to see if there was anything I missed. And yeah, 3 of the songs were Ghibli references.
It's strange because this keeps getting, whenever you talk about Makoto Shinkai, inevitably Miyazaki comes into the conversation, which I kind of don't appreciate because I feel
I mean, they're not even vaguely similar, are they?
I agree with you on this. I don't like that it keeps being compared when it's really, really, both directors were really good in their own right.
Just allow me to say, I've never compared the 2 of them, but I do know that Shinkai Makoto appreciates the Ghibli movies and the studio.
Sure. Yeah,
so
I mean,
he puts some references in, but it's not comparing. It's just that
no. I mean, I'm
talking
not saying
about
that,
art that he likes.
Yeah, I'm
like
not saying that.
apparently,
I'm
like
just-
Tarantino, like Star Trek, just doesn't make like him related in any way to the like
Correct. Yeah.
franchise. you know?
Yeah. I'm not saying Makoto Shinkai does the comparison. It's just whenever you see anything written about him, it invariably in the article it brings it up.
I will say probably from a Western standpoint or from a Western journalist standpoint.
From a lazy
these two.
standpoint, maybe, right?
From a fairly lazy standpoint, perhaps.
They're like, oh, this is Japanese and animated,
Well,
and this is
this is
Japanese and animated, therefore they are related.
That's not at all what I was trying to say in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
But they are both more artsy slow form. They are
No.
both artsy and slow form.
No. I mean, okay. They're artsy. I'll give you that. They're both very artsy.
There are
Shinkai
elements of supernatural.
less so. But certainly that he's not slow paced. Miyazaki's is generally quite slow paced, right? And meandering, and it's about the atmosphere in Miyazaki
All
movies.
3 of the last 3 movies we're talking about here, specifically Suzume, Weathering with You, and Your Name, have significant scenes where we're just looking at the countryside and it's raining and we just look at that for a while.
Okay, but
I'm not saying the whole movie is slow. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that. I am saying that there are lots of moments in those movies that have a Ghibli feel. I'm not saying it's a Ghibli movie. I'm not trying to compare them to each other. I think that Ghibli movies have a very different feel.
But I mean, you must admit that these 3 movies have been quite fast-paced. There's
I
generally,
fully agree with
like
that.
the plot moves along at a pace. You're never really left alone with your thoughts for very long. Whereas a Ghibli movie, I mean, God, there's like sometimes like 15 minutes without anyone speaking. That doesn't really happen here. You get a pause every now and then, and that's probably good because there's so much happening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree with I suppose both of you it's not a Ghibli like experience.
It's not a Ghibli experience, no. But I can see where someone could put them in a similar category. It's just they're handled very differently.
I was talking to someone the other day, and I think they had a point in this, in that like people tend to, because they sort of dump anime as a genre rather than a medium, which will have different genres in it, they tend to like sort of label certain things. So I think what happens quite a lot is when they say like Miyazaki, they mean good, you know.
Oh, I
Their
see what you're saying.
minds, right?
So like
I'm not
a
saying,
higher
I'm not,
bar.
But yeah,
I'm
that's
saying I see
yeah,
it this way.
that's what I'm saying, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of a lazy Western journalist shorthand.
Yes.
They
That is,
don't
that
they
is-
don't want to do too much research. There's these are two good directors in this field.
Yeah, and possibly would share an audience.
So this film is very much related to the 2011 earthquake / tsunami that caused the Fukushima incident.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like we see that happen in this movie, but that's the protagonist's backstory. Is she's essentially an orphan, kind of not an orphan, but like her
Well, both her parents
die from that
Yeah.
that earthquake, and it's supposed to be like a kind of reflection on that. There was a whole there were like a whole lot of memorials and things that were happening at the time of the movie's release in Japan, and so it was trying to be caught up in that sort of feeling, I guess. People have also, said it's supposed to kind of reflect like the state of mind of a person who's kind of survived a lot of terrible things, I guess.
Mhm.
And so the earthquake's one of those. I think, the pandemic, of course, is another thing, and this is supposed to just kind of, I don't know, but I that's just something people have been saying. It's supposed to reflect like a post-traumatic experience, which I think it does, but
I think it has some pretty deep exploration of the feelings of, I'm trying to go on with my day to day, and maybe on the surface I seem fine,
yeah.
but there's a lot of stuff happening inside that we don't get to see all the time. Especially with our main character, Suzume herself. She seems like an almost upbeat, happy girl in the beginning of the movie. And then as the movie progresses, a lot more of what's underneath starts to like shine out just because of some hardship, effectively. And it's harder for her to keep the mask on. And I really think that we actually watch her heal a lot in this movie.
Yeah, but it's not a depressing movie by any stretch of the imagination, right?
No, this is not.
It's very
this is not-
emotional, and but it's not like hopeless or anything like that.
No.
So apparently Shinkai said that Kiki's delivery service was sort of an inspiration in making this movie. I don't see that at all, but okay.
I will say the end is a lot like Howl's Moving Castle.
Is it? Oh yeah.
The reference of
no,
someone from the
yeah,
future coming
that's
back
true.
to the past, affecting the past, and then you go to the future and you become that person. That whole thing.
And then he referenced Guardian, the Lonely and Great God, which I don't know anything about.
I don't know that movie.
And also the novel Kafka on the Shore, which I have read, and I would recommend no one else read that book. It's awful.
Real boring book.
Yeah, kind of gross as well.
But hold on, how is that related to this?
I don't know. That's why I'm just trying to. It's just something he said. Those are influences for this movie.
So
I
like,
mean,
with Kiki's, I can't think of specific links that I'd be able to point to. But in terms of
Maybe
like,
he's just
it sounding
maybe he's
right,
just
to me, it does
trolling
sound
us.
right.
That
no. I mean,
No,
it's a
like,
possibility.
It
Sorry,
has that-
if I'm
it has that
stretching a lot.
It has that same flavor as Kiki's in like a.
orphan kind of.
No, that's just what I'm saying. I can't point to something specific,
Specific,
but it make
yeah.
like that statement makes sense to me anyway.
It does
Right.
make a degree of sense from a feel perspective.
Yes.
When she does her journey,
Oh, the
part of
journey
this,
bit of it. Yeah, that's true.
there's
Did
a
you
lot
watch,
of like individual people watching her on the trip who help her, and that feels very kind of
yes,
like
that is
Kiki.
very Kiki's. You're
Yeah.
right.
More recently, there was an anime called Majo no Tabi Tabi,
Yes.
And that was about a little witch who's
Traveling witch.
just graduated, and she's going on like her witch journey. Apparently, that witches do when they
To travel and
graduate
learn,
there.
yeah.
And that kind of has the feeling of this. Although
Yes, exactly.
this just happens in like a 4-day period, I guess. Rather than a few
Yeah,
years.
this is a bit of a time is a little bit odd on this because when she checks her phone and she's like 2 days ago. Oh no! I was like, what do you mean 2 days ago? How much time is passing here?
Yeah. It's crazy
but,
how much happens in this movie in such a short amount of time.
It's pretty short. But yeah, I do think that there's an entire section of this movie that's a lot like Kiki's Delivery Service in some regards. But it's like not direct. It's you can say inspiration, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so let's talk about some characters.
Indeed.
We have the main heroine, which is...
Before we talk about characters, because
Okay.
I'd like to get into spoilers when we talk about characters, can we just give our
Oh, sure.
impression rating thing?
Do that now. Yes, why don't you give us a rating?
I'm going to call this an 8 out of 10. Not only did I have a good time, not only did I feel like my time was well spent, but I would recommend other people watch this movie. I think there's a good theme, and the message at the end was relatively positive.
Dylan?
I loved this movie. I think it's a very, very strong film, and I think that people should definitely watch it. So it's just very, very good.
I'd say it's very emotionally moving. The animation is delicious to look at.
And the score is amazing as well.
Absolutely.
I want the soundtrack very much for my home, please.
I love the characters. And especially what they did with the main hero guy, without giving any spoilers away. So I will easily give it an 8 out of 10 as well. Must see.
Spoilers time.
Probably best anime movie of the year. Not that I watch that many anime movies every year. I guess.
I mean, there was probably another Demon Slayer movie somewhere in this year. I
there
think this is
was
better.
actually.
Yeah.
But this is I think this is the highest grossing anime film of all time now. It's overtaken that Demon Slayer movie. Thank God.
Is it
Actually, a really
Yeah.
good movie, so I'm happy to hear that as well.
Yeah. It's certainly one of the most.
Here on out, spoilers are permissible. You have been
Excellent.
warned.
Let's talk about characters, because there's one character I want to talk about.
Cherkun.
No. As a note, I think we had a very different experience, you and I.
Probably.
You liked the main girl and Chirkun a fair bit. I kind of was getting real bored of her. Suzume Iwato. I was getting a little bit bored of what she was doing. Not like she was terrible or anything, but it felt like that travel thing dragged a little bit. But I understand that you have to drag it because she's going through a bunch of experiences. Best character by far, saved the entire movie, Serizawa.
He's in it for such a short amount of time. It's hard to say.
He's in it for such a short amount of time, but there's such a complex set of emotions that come out of him.
So apparently there's a companion novel just about Serizawa, if you're interested, Yash.
Oh, that sounds interesting, but I think it would kill the best part about him. If you explain his emotions, it removes the fun of it.
I think I said this to you afterwards. I kind of wish he had like asked the aunt out or something. Afterwards.
Yes, yeah. And also that Okabe guy, the office worker that's like super trying to hit on her
Shame, I feel
and
sorry
not
for that
catching the
guy.
negatives. I just feel like in a very short period of time, we had a cast of side characters based around Tsubame, the aunt, based around the aunt that gave us a much better story than I was expecting ever. Her name's like Tsubame.
Tsubame, yeah.
Yeah. And Okabe and Serizawa are both involved, but Serizawa is not like trying. He's just involved because he's trying to be a good buddy. And he accidentally wins over everyone by accident, kind of.
he just doesn't want to be an asshole, I guess. So
Well, no,
he
but he's
goes
also
along with whatever's happening around
Driving
him.
for 7 hours, he's trying to be the best bro. He's trying to take care of his friend. But it just so happens that he ends up being pretty cool and thus involved with Tsubame and everyone.
There should be an anime, like a full length anime after this about him
It reminded me
just
so
being
much
a
of
teacher.
GTO.
Exactly right. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. We need a GTO like series with him just actually
him.
teaching. It would be great.
it kind of would be. And then, second most important is the rug pull, the surprise twist with Daijin, who initially seems like such a bad character, like an evil force. But then when you hear its reasoning, no, it's a spirit. It's not a person, and spirits work on your words. She asked it to become her cat. It passed its responsibilities on to Sota, and it was no longer responsible for those responsibilities. It just wanted to be her cat. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't evil. It was just going with what she asked of it.
It might be confusing for people with the Surizawa thing, the teacher thing. He and main hero guy Sota want to be teachers and have gone to teacher college, although Sota has flunked out of it because he was a chair when he was supposed to be writing his final exam. So yeah, anyway, let's explain that. So Daijin gets freed from his duty as Keystone, I think. I can't remember what they called it. And he turns into a cat and goes to Suzume's house. And she says, "Oh, don't you want to be our cat?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And then he can speak. And as a result, passes on the duty to Sota, who has some sort of family tie to sealing gates as like a spiritual kind of thing.
Pretty common thread in Shinkai Makoto movies is that there is a secret organization of like priest figures or families that have been priests managing the spirit world.
So
in this one, Sota has been walking around the countrysides, closing doors in ruins everywhere in Japan. There are doors that just need to be closed, and you must thank the earth spirit, lest the great worm from below come out through these doors.
So his being gets sealed into a chair that is the childhood chair that Suzume's mother made for her, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a three-legged chair as well.
Three-legged, kind of beaten up chair. And yeah, it animates when his soul is put into it. And thus starts a series of events of them going around the Japanese countryside, sealing these magical doors to... what do they call it?
But they just call it I think they call it the underworld? Or the other side. They only say underworld or other side. They don't really give it a name as far as I'm aware.
It had a name. Like the I can't remember. But yeah, it's the spirit world, right? Essentially.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the hereafter. They do call it the hereafter, sorry.
Oh, okay. Dylan just went mad there for a second. We'll edit that out. But anyway, so they call it the ever after, right, Jesh? And on that side of the thing, there are a bunch of giant worms that want to break through into our world for some reason and cause earthquakes.
They cause natural disasters.
Thus tying it to the 2011 earthquake thing. So this supposedly that is what caused the last event, was one of these giant worms.
One of the giant worms was not managed. Yeah,
breaks through, and as we see, what the hell are they? Are they just rogue spirits? What did you get out of that? I wasn't really sure why they were doing
Which they are
anything.
we talking about?
The worms.
The cats?
Yeah, the worms.
The worms. The worms just represent a force or so the reason why it's headless, from what I understand, is that it's supposed to represent a natural force. It's not malice. It doesn't have malice. It doesn't have will. It's just a natural force. And apparently, for as long as Japan has existed, this family has been sealing it consistently. So we don't know too much about the malevolent force. All we know is it was sealed in ancient times, and if it breaks out, it causes a natural disaster.
Yeah, the only thing that I caught near the end of the film was basically like a line that implied that every time people start feeling disconnected from one another, it starts to build, and the only thing subduing it is the weight of emotion. So, when people, this is now where I start to stretch maybe what was said, but it kind of has the feeling that when people start taking each other for granted, this starts to rear its head.
Okay.
Well, also supporting that is the way to seal the worm is to feel how everyone in that area should feel, to become attached to the people in that area.
And how they're all connected, yeah.
A strange premise, but it's kind of like almost a subplot, right? Because that gets wrapped up about halfway through the movie, with the main male lead getting turned into a chair, and then the chair becomes one of the keystones for the Tokyo Gate.
Which once again seals the worm up.
Yeah.
So about halfway through the movie, it seals itself up again.
And that makes the worm dormant or something for some reason?
Containable. While there are two guardians, escape attempts. As we see in the other world, the guardians transform into lions and knock the worm down.
Right. I'm not sure.
It sounds a
I'm not
bit
sure
weird,
lions is the correct.
Fair enough.
Thing
But
there.
we see the guardians protecting, but we can see that one guardian is not able to do it.
So there are two spirits. There's Daijin and there's Suzume, and they're both cats. One's a white cat, one's a black cat. Now, like I was saying to Dylan before this, like Suzume is something I have heard about. It's a evil Ayakashi kind of monster, fae-like monster that can curse people. That's the black cat. I've never heard of Daijin, like himself, I guess. Maybe that is just the good version of that character. I
So
don't know
in
if
the
they do.
movie, they start calling it Daijin because it looks like a fancy cat. As far as I can understand, Daijin just kind of means fancy cat or like great cat.
Well, no. I think they start calling it Daijin because maybe it looks like that mythological creature. Because it's
I will
like a
say,
white... Yeah.
the not Taoism. What's the symbol of the two circles with the black and the white?
Yin Yang.
Yin Yang. The Yin Yang on them was incredible.
Right.
Because the black cat had a little white eye, and the white cat has a little black eye.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the implication here.
When they
also,
were called up in
white
the back
creatures in Japanese mythology are always messengers of gods. So that's I guess the implication as well, that this is the holy one. And it does sort of have like a weird message, I guess, for Suzume, that she's...
And also the most unnecessarily emotional thing ever.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
unnecessary.
What you
God
talking
damn it, movie.
What you talking about?
The end of the movie, the very end, is they rescue the guy, Sota, but someone has to be the keystone.
Right.
So Daijin goes back to being the keystone, but
Oh,
as
right,
it's
right,
going back
yeah.
to being the keystone, it curls into a little ball, becomes sickly again, and then says, "I'm sorry I couldn't become your cat," before it freezes over.
Yes. We were also talking about how these series of movies have had implication that sacrificing yourself for the greater good is kind of bad, right?
Kind of wrong.
Kind of wrong.
Yeah, very contra to standard narrative, yeah.
And
Because if you think about it,
Yeah.
halfway through this movie, the idea of sacrificing yourself, this guy's family has been doing that for generations. The thing is settled, and if the other keystone goes back and stays as a keystone, everything would be sorted.
yeah.
But we don't end the movie there.
So I mean, in Tenkinoko, we got also the sort of opposite of this, where the male character goes and destroys Tokyo essentially
get the girl
to
back.
free the girl. In this one, they don't destroy anything, but there wasn't any like plan They very easily could have just unleashed all of the monsters again. Is the impression I get, right?
Yeah.
So the director feels strongly about this for some reason or the other, that it's not something you should consider to be like an innately a good thing. Don't sacrifice your own happiness, I guess, for the sake of others, is what he's saying. I imagine.
The overwhelming thread that combines these three movies is that.
Very strange for a moral of a movie, I guess, but it makes for a lovely chaos. I guess from a writing perspective, it really does work that way.
Yeah, I mean, it does sort of lend to the dialogue where we tend to, at least in the stories that are commonplace, it tends to be quite a big message that you should endure things that are affecting you so that you can give to the society around you more, and that is that there's no balance to be had with that, right? That's never part of the conversation. And this movie in particular is very much like what I appreciated, to move away from maybe that concept just briefly. What I appreciated very much is, it's all about closing and locking the doors. And we've all seen this sort of symbolism before, where a doorway is either a transitionary point, in other words, you move through it to get somewhere. That's the symbolism often associated with it, or you open it for an opportunity. And this movie doesn't deal with either, really. Every time she closes and locks a door, it's so that she can actually move on. And that kind of symbolism is something that I appreciate, right? You've got to deal with the stuff that's holding you back first before you can truly actually just walk forward into something new.
I was going to talk about that, yeah.
So it's all about resolution and closure.
The movie starts out with our character in an okay position. She's a well-performing high school girl on her way to graduate. But the movie shows us, through the progression of the movie, that actually she's dealing with a lot, and there's a lot wrong with her. Not like wrong as in like it's going to destroy her, but like she's holding in a lot of stuff. And so is her aunt / adopted mother. And through the movie, they eventually vent and allow the stuff out and then deal with it and then move forward. And you just feel a lot more secure with who they are as they move forward.
Yeah.
Because they are opening themselves to emotions and moving on. Another side theme in the movie is that, like, I don't know about you guys, but when she ran away from home and began traveling a great distance and she started to talk about her bank balance and she's running out of savings, I was starting to get afraid that we were going to see this girl, like, living on the streets, getting kicked by people and stuff. Like some real negative hard world stuff. And instead, she got rescued by Chica, this girl from, like, the next town over, who just effectively adopted her, gave her clothes, gave her a place to stay, gave her food. And then another lady who has 3 kids or something. And then she takes her in and makes her work in her bar for an evening in exchange for the ride. But gives her a place to shower, sleep for a night, gives her food. And it's really, like, it didn't feel out of place. It felt like she lucked out a little bit, but it felt like also these people exist.
I think the implication, right, isn't that she lucked out, is that if you look back at it, like, Daijin is kind of projecting kind of like a luck around her.
I think slightly differently.
And kind of guiding her through all the things. Because he's leading her to all of the open doors.
Leading her to the doors. But I think the message is that these friendly people are out there. The ability to connect to others is out there. We're all just too afraid to go look.
Sure.
And all are sharing, traumas and hardships.
Everyone has a little bit of a story of their own, and they all are so sweet when we go back on our journey. During the return trip, we go and visit them in reverse order, and it was so cool to see her aunt apologizing while she's just like playing with the kids and stuff, and it was very sweet. I really enjoyed the emotional journey in this movie.
Mm.
Well, how would you rank it in terms of his other recent movies?
I mean, personally, I know we disagree on this. I put Withering with You first, this second, and Your Name third.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
I know that's a bit wackadoodle. I understand that
No.
Withering with You didn't connect with a lot of people. I get that. I do.
Yeah.
But for me, it connected directly. Like, Withering with You directly connected with me so hard.
I think I like
That's good.
the emotional moments in Your Name a little bit better than Withering with You, Tenkinoko. But I think I like Tenkinoko overall a bit better than Your Name. But I clearly think this is better than maybe both of them.
See, the thing is, I didn't connect with the main two characters very well. That's my problem. Sorry, Dylan, I interrupted you.
No, I don't feel like you did. But yeah, I'm inclined towards Suzume because of some of the themes that it deals with. But that's again a personal thing.
It's also the scope of this is bigger, right? It's just like a whirlwind tour of Japan.
Yeah, I mean they do start from like southwest and carry on upwards and eastward.
When you think about how many characters we were introduced to along the way, and the fact that, like, generally, I care about all of them. I don't love them all, but I care about all of them. It's actually kind of amazing. Of course, mostly I say having watched recent TV and being very disappointed with getting a 2-hour show.
What did you think about the aunt?
14 characters.
What did you think about her aunt? I mean, she sort of comes off as... I think she's supposed to come off as overly protective in the beginning. There's the scene where she sort of grabs Suzume's hand, kind of tries to stop her going off somewhere in the first time we see them interact. And there and after she's trying her best to kind of monitor what she's doing. And
I don't think it was unnatural. I think a lot of parents of like 16-year-old and 17-year-old kids don't want them to make a mistake that will destroy the rest of their lives. Running away randomly, vanishing for 3 or 4 days, possibly with a guy. That sounds like a way to end your life, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they do deal with the fact that like motherhood was a role that was kind of forced
onto her,
on her, not unwillingly, but just suddenly. And
but she has some resentment for the fact that she had to assume the role, right?
Yeah. I think.
Although that was also implied that Sadaijin, the other spirit,
had forced that out of her.
Yeah.
But she also does say, of course I've had these thoughts, but they're completely outweighed by the love I have for you.
Yeah, but this is just it. Like, I think we don't, again, like societally, we tend to go all or nothing into one or the other, right? You're either supposed to be a paragon in this matter, or you're an awful human being. You're not allowed to have duality in this regard. You can't sit and acknowledge that your life took a 90-degree turn from where it was headed, right? All of the plans that you had in place for yourself took a 90-degree turn, and that there is that missed potential that will always be in your mind, but at the same time, it doesn't stop you from fully dedicating yourself to trying to go in the direction that you find yourself in now, right, with this child. I think the movie does a good job of that. You know, they get to have that moment of full release of saying everything, including the fact that she loves Suzume. You know, and
but it also carries on.
There, you know, traveled across the country just to find her.
Now that we've talked about all these trivial matters, we have to talk about the main burning issue of this movie. And that, of course, is the time loop that they establish in this.
Okay.
So, the chair is the same chair that at one time the mother must have created but is also
Yes.
brought back in time and handed back to the child version of Suzume by the adult version of Suzume, right?
Hmm. So
Hmm.
after the tsunami that destroyed her village/town, she went into the hills to look for her mother, under the assumption that her mother just was somewhere out there lost and looking for her. During that journey, the future Suzume comes across her and gives her back the chair, which presumably was lost in the detritus, and now we have a time looped chair being passed back and forth. Uh, that Suzume gets found with later on by the aunt.
So what happens? What happens when that chair starts disintegrating a few loops in, right?
I think it's basically been maintained.
How?
Yeah,
How?
yeah.
Magic,
By magic. Okay.
time travel magic.
Listen, I mean, we've got like worms that cause earthquakes. We've got
No, I don't think you're fully appreciating the gravity of the situation. When
Yeah,
that
yeah.
chair finally turns to sawdust,
when it
Tokyo's
becomes a
doomed.
two-legged chair.
That's-
no one
that's
will
how-
be able to
that's-
sit on it.
Maybe that's when weathering with you happens.
Yeah,
And Tokyo just sorry, no more chair left. Tokyo dies now, I guess.
I mean, if we want to mechanic it, I think that when she returns to the past, the original chair replaces the chair in her hand.
yeah. Look, it is a very emotional scene in general, and
Mhm.
it's quite clever the way that the older Suzume's resolution in being able to let go of that chair, because that chair goes with her throughout the whole movie, right? It is something she cannot let go of.
Mm.
Even when it gets taken away from her, then she's got to get it back. You know, it's obviously representative, like, of someone that sort of takes the place of the chair at that point. But it's still essentially symbolically about the trauma in her childhood, her mom being killed in that event.
But also,
Now-
how? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, it's quite neat how they do the resolution of that in her handing that over to her younger self when her younger self needed something of her mother's,
To
just
hold on to.
anything of her mother's to hold on to be able to survive for that time.
Hmm. Also, I feel it's super cool that because you can't see the changes in yourself because you're with yourself all the time. You know what if you know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say? But because her child self saw her bigger self as someone that's like her mother or effectively her mother, how cool is it that she gets to experience knowing that the adult version of her is carrying on her mother's legacy in a way? She's becoming like her mother. All of that love for her mother, she is a part of it now.
Yeah, or at the very least, someone who is okay and can stand on her own 2 feet. You know, that life does continue after all of the awful events that had taken place.
Do you think Soja ever gets his $200 back?
No. He forgot that he wasn't the one that borrowed it, he was the one that gave it.
Right.
I think Sarah will be too busy spending money chasing people's aunties
Right.
to be able to
Hopefully,
give them back that
yeah.
money.
I hope he gets a new car as well.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
Sarah
a 4x4.
Zara is a real character.
He comes along just as the movie's starting to slow down a little bit and we're starting to get to some of those heavier, deeper topics. And he's a dude who bought a sports car, but it's old and beaten up on the inside. He plays loud music to bring up the mood when everyone else is trying to deal with their trauma. And his convertible rain roof doesn't work. And he laughs when that happens.
Yes.
He's the best character in the whole movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's certainly the most eccentric character in the movie.
He seems quite carefree compared
Yes,
to the other
yeah.
characters.
He comes across as carefree initially, but like when you watch his actions and how he talks about his friend, he's
No,
super invested and supportive of his
Yeah,
friend.
I'm not saying that he's not
I
invested.
could just
I mean,
remember that from his perspective, nothing serious is happening, right?
Also true.
He has no context on anything that's happening around him. He's just got caught up with these two crazy women. and some weird talking cats. Nothing bad happens from his perspective. He doesn't see the worms. He can't see spirits.
Well, he realizes that his friend Sota is not at his apartment and hasn't been for a while.
Yeah. So I mean, the
so
only thing that's just his entire motivation is he wants to find out what's happening.
He's going to
with
go
Sota.
get Sota back. Yeah.
Because he's angry at him for not showing up to his exam, right?
Mm-hmm. But effectively, it's because he wants to take care of him.
So I mean,
Which I think is super
he's
cool.
just having a super weird day, you know. Whereas everyone else is fighting giant demons and things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why it works so well. Because he's basically from another movie at that point.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The playing the music loudly to get everyone's spirits up while they're dealing with internal trauma is the funniest scene in the whole movie
Yes.
for me.
I mean, maybe it is just that, like, sometimes when you're dealing with heavy stuff, it helps having someone who's just not dealing with heavy stuff that's around you and isn't, like, pandering after you too much. They're just being themselves, you know.
Okay.
I think him and Chica could have gotten on real well.
Do you think? Yeah.
I definitely think so.
Real well. Yeah.
Anyway, I think on that note, thanks everyone for listening to this podcast. We'll be back next week with our anime recommendations now that we've watched most of the first few episodes of this current season's anime.
Go watch Suzume.
Yep, go watch it. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.